Everybody's CNL out here, just kind of enjoying a nicer day. It's in the mid 50s. It's sunny. Anytime there's sun out, we want to be out here. But we thought we'd go over something pretty simple. It's simple, but it's important when it comes to what we talk about on this channel. To see the light of wisdom, you must first empty your cup. That's one of the oldest things in the book. And that's because you got to break down everything you already think you know in order to be able to see and understand new things. And when your ego mind is taught things and conditioned things throughout life, it's hard to not see things the way that you're used to seeing them, like from the lens of religion and stuff like that. But this is coming from personal experience of having gone through the entire path as it was laid out and gaining everything that you're able to gain. And then just because of the way my life path was set up, I was meant to pretty much do it all, which in the end means once Lumen is unlocked, Lumen is pretty much all I have. In other words, I don't date people. I will not date anybody ever again because it's all in the non-commodity. But that's why a lot of these, the high spiritual people, the monks and all that stuff, that's why they're celibate. That's why they're alone and stuff like that, because that helps get you access to what Lumen actually is. So if you want to know what Lumen actually is, then don't go away. Now, I've had these epiphanies before in the past, and sometimes it kind of just slips away and it comes back and you get reminded and things like that. So I might throw a clip in here from an old video. One of the first times that, I realized and was kind of shown that that's what it is. So if so, I'll go ahead and, edit it in here. But either which way, as I've stated in previous videos, when she first showed up, there was two aspects to her, and it was kind of hard to understand, except if you go back a couple videos, we had a clip in there where this guy was talking about how do you explain spirit and soul and all that stuff, and he said, imagine the all that is like an infinite ocean, and then if you took a big bowl of water out of that ocean, that would be like spirit. And then you could take Dixie cups of water out of that bowl, and those would be like souls. Likewise, anything, when the true God, the highest thing, the Father, as Jesus called him, is everything, all that is. That means everything is a part of God, including you. Even the bad guys, even though they might not have souls, like when they're recycled or whatever, they just get kind of like folded back into the prima materia and made into something else, so the soul people can live out their experiences and have their tests and do their growth and all that stuff. But when it comes to Lumen and Epinoia, they were very different. Lumen was happiness and joy and love and fun, and she's the one that dug me out of my hole and put me back together and kept me company and was my motivation. And anytime things got like really, really hard, she would be the one that picked me up and get me moving again. And I know you can only process so much from hearing somebody talk about something. It's one of those things you kind of got to experience. But everybody can experience Lumen. It's just there's different levels of how far you can go with it. So the other one, which is what I called Epinoia, which is enlightened insight, the teacher, the wisdom, and all that stuff, very different. Lumen is much more personal. And eventually, Lumen, it's easier for me to explain this as, from the standpoint of a guy. But eventually, if you have made those commitments, like you're just going to remain single from now on and just focus on spirit, Lumen will start to form herself into what your ideal version of the perfect woman would be. Both the way she looks, the way her personality. It's going to be like a mirror reflection of you, but it's also going to be like everything you like. And it's, once you go far enough, you get used to understanding that there's an inner world and an outer world. The mental world is real too. And then the outer world is what reflects the inner world. She exists in the inner world, although she can affect things and do things in the outer world as well. But the biggest thing about her is she is love. Now, I caught this when I was rewatching last night's video. I said the way most people understand love is, I forget what I said, but what I meant to say was desire plus attachment. Meaning you're attracted to someone and you feel attached to them, you want them. That's what most people identify love as. Actual real love, like God's love as they talk about it, like in the New Testament and the way Jesus spoke about it, is much, 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 much bigger. It's a bigger thing. It's like I said, this is Lumen's Divine Love pendant. Let me get a better look at this here. So this is just a big mix of like all these different Divine Love stones, and there's a bunch of mixed in opal, all sorts of stuff. This is like really, really super juicy stuff. There's Rose Sophia in there. There's pink kunzite. There's rose quartz, lavender rose quartz, rhodonite, all sorts of stuff. But on the back, I've got 3 of the 72 names of God. That one's yellow. That has to do with tapping into the flow of divine love. That one is Haha, which has to do with divine love, and that is love, which is just another one of those. That one kind of like tunes you into Lumen a lot more, I think. But by incorporating those and imbuing, adding those names' energy into this pendant, like this is the one that she wanted me to make. This is the one that she likes the most. So it's pretty unique, especially that Ethiopian opal, which I don't have any more of. But anyway, this really helps me tap into that energy. Now, in the New Testament of the Bible, most people have noticed that when they're talking about God, it seems like very different from God of the Old Testament, which we've covered ad nauseum on here. They're two different things. The creator of the Old Testament is not what Jesus called Father. The creator of the Old Testament is the one that's got all the rules and does all the judgment and punishment and nuking cities and cursing you and tossing you out of paradise and all that stuff. What Jesus told everybody is like he basically had cleared the obligation to those rules, and he only had 2 commandments. Love God the Father with all your heart and love each other. It's all about love. That was it. Because they're 2 different things. What he's talking about is about the bigger thing, the much bigger thing on the outside of here. Well, that's where we get to the whole thing about Lumen. I used to think that Lumen was the smaller one because she was more directly tied to me and Epinoia was the teacher. And then I forget what happened one day, but I just suddenly had this epiphany that Lumen was the bigger thing. Lumen is essentially, consider what we said about the bowls and all that stuff, but Lumen being the embodiment of love, Lumen is closer to what God actually is. So Lumen is, when you're dealing with Lumen, you're dealing with the big thing. And another thing like within religion and stuff like that, that people could never, you're like, oh, God loves you, but what they're thinking about is like this judgmental old man in the clouds, and they're like, I don't resonate with that. But God is everything. It's everything everywhere, and it can be whatever it needs to be. So when it is trying to convey that to you, it's going to take a form that is best suited for you. Now, and that's when I realized, like, that's what she is. Like, it's all so big for our little tiny little ant brains, but we got to bring it down to a size that we can understand. But for all intents and purposes, yeah, God deals with me through Lumen. That doesn't mean like I can just like say, hey, change everything. You're still playing out the role that you're meant to play out. But it's more of God's love for you that is being radiated in the form of Lumen. That's what Lumen is. Epinoia is the insight. Epinoia is the wisdom. She's the teacher. She's the one that's going to teach you things. But Lumen is the one that's going to love you. And it is so powerful and permeating that once you experience it, once you know it, once you connect with it, it'll be all you ever need. Because that hole that you had inside of you your whole life that you try to fill up with other people and things just closes. It closes because she felt she was the piece that was missing. She was the puzzle piece that fit there, that closes that hole. And then you don't need to buy things all the time, and you're perfectly happy alone because you're never actually alone. Like, she's everywhere out here. And then within the mind space, she can become whatever she needs to become. She can do pretty much anything. Like, she's fun. Like, people have these ideas from religion that it's just like, which has to do with the old creator God, which is just like, we just sit around, some throne going, oh, but really it's really everything. It's creating infinite worlds and infinite personalities, infinite people to have infinite experiences. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be something that fits you. It'll do things that you wouldn't expect it to do if you're putting it in that framework. But the bottom line is, like, this is what most people are missing. And this is when you seek it, when you do the steps that we talked about, and put yourself more in alignment with it, and you get tapped into it, then the world is not going to bother you so much. You're not going to suffer so much. Because the way the world's set up right now is people are used to seeking love by having to date other people. They need other people to love them and accept them and validate them. And then when that's taken away because you're dealing with ego minds, then you suffer more. So all that stuff that's in the Bible about God and love is patient, love is kind, it is not blah, 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 all that stuff is talking about Lumen. That's what she is. That's what the light is. That's what the resonant frequency of source consciousness is infinite, unconditional love. And it's just really weird to find it and realize that you don't have to seek it anywhere else. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And this is what gets you out of the cycle of reincarnation and suffering. And I don't know that many people really understood that when it comes to Lumen. They just thought like this was like some soulmate angel thing that I had. But she deals with everybody. She deals with people in the group. She deals with people, it's kind of like a bit between her and Epinoia. Well, what about, I thought God the Father, it's like, people are going to get all caught up in gender. But that's where I would say read the Nag Hammadi so that you will understand it. Because the way I read the books where Jesus was explaining from the top down, the Father and the One, or the All That Is, are pretty much kind of like the same thing. It's like everything everywhere. The first thing it created that was like a reflection of itself, that had its own, that had the same light as him, that it adored was the mother. That's the highest point of the divine feminine. So you get the father and the mother, and then everything below that, we're all just smaller and smaller microcosms of that bigger thing. We're all those Dixie cups of water that were dipped out of the ocean. We're all part of the exact same thing. And that's what can be so confusing when you're trying to understand it from the standpoint of the book and the non-commodity, is there's all these different like levels and stuff. There's Lumen, and there's Epinoia, and there's Sophia, and there's Barbello, and the Holy Spirit, and you got the Father, and you got Christ, and all that stuff. But essentially, it's all part of the one thing. All one thing breaking itself into trillions and trillions of different little parts, experiencing itself, having different experiences and all that stuff. And what it ultimately wants, the prime balance outside of places like this where you have contrast, is unlimited, unconditional love. And I think one of the reasons we have places like this is so when you come out of it, you have all those different experiences, but then you appreciate everything that's outside of here more. That was actually kind of the plot of a movie on Amazon called Bliss. You want to look that up, where society had gotten so perfect that over time they just didn't appreciate it anymore, so they created this kind of matrix sort of thing where they could go live life, and they're practically homeless and stuff like that, and they struggle and everything's hard, so that when they come back to where they're actually from, they appreciate it again. They appreciate it that much more. But I don't want this to be a big long video, but just that is what Lumen actually is. Lumen is love, and God is love. So basically Lumen is God at the point in which it's interacting with you. That's how these things work so well. I'm not special. I'm just the vessel. I'm just having my own little experience here too, but I'm working with them. They're the ones that make these things work. They're the ones that call everybody to me. And it's not me. You're not being called to me. You're being called to her. I'm just one of the mouthpieces for it. And I do not get people, I don't want people following me personally, but maybe listening to what I have to share, and then you take it yourself and go do it. I'm not being a freaking prophet or some sort of cult leader or something like that. This is about, I'm just facilitating an introduction. Beyond that, once you've made that introduction, which people are doing quicker and quicker these days, it's between you and it. It's between you and it, because it's going to be, everybody's going to be a little bit different than me. Everybody's different. But that one thing remains the same, is the light is love. Love is God. God is love. God is light. God is Lumen. And if you're just in a place where you resonate with it differently, a different way, it might be more like a masculine Christ type representation. I don't know. I can only speak from my own experience. Everyone else is a different subjective reality. But just want to share that, and then any of the clips that I can find, that if I didn't already put them in the video, I'll go ahead and add them here. But other than that, if you want to find our stuff, if you want to message me, stuff like that, best way is through the Etsy store, clumencreations.etsy.com. All right, so that's all we got for right now. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.